A birthday letter, an empty house, and a husband who vanished without a trace. What she found by the lake that night would unravel everything she thought she knew about their marriage. The letter was lying on the kitchen table when I woke up. No envelope. No envelope. No name, just my husband's handwriting across the top. Read this when you're ready. My heart jumped. Today was my birthday, and this was not how I imagined starting the morning. The house was quiet. The coffee machine was off. Daniel's car was gone from the driveway. I stood there for a moment, staring at the folded paper, trying to breathe. We'd never been the dramatic kind of couple. Birthdays in our home usually meant laughter pancakes, maybe a messy kitchen, but this letter felt heavy, almost secret. I picked it up slowly and unfolded it. Emma, I know I should be there right now, but I needed to do this my way. Please trust me. There's something I've been waiting to tell you, something I've been planning for months. You'll understand tonight. That was it. No signature, no explanation. No explanation. Just that. I felt my chest tighten. We'd been married 8 years. Lately, things had been off. Not broken, just quieter. He'd been coming home late, smiling less, saying, "I'm fine," too often. I told myself it was work stress. Maybe it still was. But now, holding that letter, I wasn't so sure. My best friend Lily called just as I sat down at the table. "Happy birthday." She sang into the phone. "Thanks," I said softly. "What's wrong? You sound like someone forgot your cake." "There's a letter from Daniel," I said. "He's gone somewhere." I said, "I'll understand tonight." "Maybe it's a surprise," she said quickly, trying to sound cheerful. "You know how he is with surprises." I wanted to believe that. But something about his handwriting, the shaky edges of the words, made me feel like this wasn't about a gift. It felt like goodbye. The day moved slowly. Every hour stretched. I tried to distract myself, folding laundry, answering birthday messages, pretending everything was fine. But my eyes kept drifting back to that letter on the table. At 5 p.m., I finally gave up waiting and called him. No answer. By 6, I was pacing the living room. Then my phone buzzed. A text. "Meet me at 7. The cabin by the lake. Don't bring anything, just you. The cabin. We hadn't been there in years. It was the place we'd gone after our wedding. A small wooden house by the lake, surrounded by tall trees and quiet water. It used to be our secret world." I didn't even think twice. I grabbed my jacket and drove. The sun was melting into the horizon as I reached the lake. The air smelled like pine and rain. I could see soft light flickering inside the cabin. My heart beat faster with every step. When I pushed the door open, music filled the air. Our wedding song, the same one we danced to 8 years ago under fairy lights and laughter. And there he was. Daniel stood by the table wearing that same navy blue shirt he wore on our first date. His hair was messy, his smile quiet. On the table were 2 plates of food, a candle, and a small wrapped box. "You made it," he said gently. "What's going on, Daniel?" I asked, still trying to catch my breath. "Sit with me first," he said. "Then I'll explain." I sat down slowly. He poured me a glass of wine, his hands trembling slightly. He looked at me like he was memorizing my face. "Do you remember this place?" he asked. How could I forget? We promised we'd come back every year. He smiled sadly. We forgot. Or maybe we just got lost in life. The room felt warm, almost too warm. I wanted to speak, but he opened the small box and slid it across the table. Inside was a leather-bound journal. "What is this?" I whispered. "It's everything I couldn't say out loud," he said. "Every day for the past 6 months, I wrote something about us. I wanted you to know what you mean to me." I opened the first page. His handwriting filled the paper. "The day I met you, I stopped believing in coincidences. The day I married you, I stopped being afraid of forever. Tears blurred my vision. Daniel, why are you giving me this now?" He looked down, then back up at me, his voice barely steady. "Because I need to tell you something tonight, something that might change how you see me." My heart froze. "What are you talking about?" He reached for my hand. His eyes glistened in the candlelight. "Before midnight, you'll know everything." A gust of wind blew through the window, flickering the candle flame between us. The music faded into silence. I wanted to ask more, but he stood up and walked to the door, looking out toward the dark lake. "I'll be right back," he said quietly. "Just stay here." Then he stepped outside. Minutes passed. 10. 15. The candle burned lower. The journal lay open on the table, one page turned by the wind. And that's when I saw it. Something written halfway through in rushed handwriting like he didn't want me to see it yet. If you're reading this before I return, it means I didn't make it in time. My heart stopped. Didn't move. The words on the page burned into my mind. If you're reading this before I return, it means I didn't make it in time. The lake outside was quiet, still, too calm for how fast my heart was racing. I grabbed my phone, tried calling him again. No answer, just the sound of wind and water through the cabin window. I looked back at the journal, my hands trembling. I turned another page, hoping for an explanation, something that made sense. Instead, I found a memory. His handwriting softer now, more careful. The first time I saw you, you were standing in the rain with no umbrella. You smiled at the sky like it was your best friend. And suddenly I was there again. It was a fall afternoon, the kind that smells like wet leaves and coffee. I had just left work, late as usual, and the rain came out of nowhere. I was drenched in seconds, holding my bag over my head and laughing at my bad luck. That's when he pulled up beside me in an old blue car. Need a ride? He shouted through the open window. I shook my head. No thank you, stranger. He grinned. Stranger? I'm Daniel from the bookstore down the street. You've bought enough novels from me to know my face by now. He was right. I had. I'd seen him a dozen times behind the counter, always smiling, always recommending books I didn't ask for. That day, though, something changed. I got in his car. He drove slowly, the windshield wipers squeaking in rhythm. So what's your favorite story? He asked. Anything that feels real, I said. He laughed. Then maybe you'll like mine. And that was how it started. Coffee dates turned into long walks. Walks turned into late night calls. He had a calm energy, a steady way of listening that made the world feel softer. He loved little things, handwritten notes, cold pizza, watching thunderstorms from the porch. One night, months later, we sat under the stars by this same lake. If I ever forget to tell you I love you, he said quietly, just look at the water, because every wave, every ripple, that's me reminding you. I remember laughing, calling it cheesy, but I never forgot it. I turned another page. I think we stopped talking the way we used to. Maybe it started with that fight about your new job. I told you I supported you, but I was afraid of losing the quiet moments we built together. He was right. That fight had started small. I got offered a position in another city. It meant travel, meetings, less time at home. He smiled and said, that's amazing. But underneath, I saw the hesitation. You don't mean that, I'd said. He sighed. I just don't want us to drift apart. And what if I need this? I'd asked. What if this is my chance? The silence that followed stretched longer than any argument. We didn't speak properly for days, then weeks. I left for the job anyway. Distance is a strange thing. Calls became texts. Texts became short replies. Until one day, there was nothing left to say. When I came back months later, I found him waiting. He smiled, but it wasn't the same smile. It was tired, careful, like who had learned to stop expecting. We stayed together, but something invisible had grown between us. Love was still there, but quieter, trapped behind everything we hadn't said. A knock broke my thoughts. I froze. I ran to the door, opened it, but no one was there. Only a small brown envelope on the porch, sealed with Daniel's handwriting on top. It said, for when you start to understand. For when you start to understand. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, an old one from the bookstore. Daniel behind the counter, smiling, holding a book. But in the corner of the photo was something I never noticed before. A second figure, me. He had taken that picture the first day I met him, before I even knew who he was. There was a note on the back. You were my favorite story before you even said a word. I pressed the photo against my chest, tears spilling before I could stop them. He'd been thinking of me even then, long before I noticed him. For a moment, the fear in my chest eased. Maybe he wasn't gone. Maybe this was part of his plan, a message, a trail of memories leading to something I hadn't yet seen. I turned the journal to the last written page. There was one final line before it ended mid-sentence. Tomorrow, I'll show you the truth about why I've been distant. It's not what you think. My breath caught, because just then I heard a car engine outside. I ran to the window, heart pounding, and saw headlights moving slowly up the hill. It was his car. The headlights stopped outside the cabin. For a second, I couldn't move. My hands were still clutching the journal. My breath caught somewhere between relief and fear. Then the car door opened, and Daniel stepped out. He looked the same, and yet different. Older somehow, tired but calm. His shirt was damp from the drizzle, his hair falling across his forehead. He froze when he saw me standing in the doorway. "You read it," he said quietly. "I did," I whispered. "You said if I was reading before you came back, it meant you didn't make it in time." He smiled faintly. I almost didn't. I stared at him. "Daniel, what's going on? Why all this? The letters, the cabin, the silence. What are you not telling me?" He stepped closer. The rain hit the roof harder, filling the silence between us. "Can I come in?" I nodded. Inside, the candle had almost burned out. The room glowed in soft golden shadow. He looked around, then back at me. "You kept it warm." I didn't know what else to do, I said. For a while, neither of us spoke. The tension was thick, but underneath it, there was something else. Something familiar. Something familiar. The space between us didn't feel like a wall anymore. It felt like a bridge we'd forgotten how to cross. "Finally," I said, "you scared me. I thought something happened." He ran a hand through his hair. "Something did, but not the way you think." "Then tell me." He walked to the table, picked up the journal, and opened it halfway. "Do you remember the week I stopped coming home early? The week you said I was slipping away?" "Yes," I said softly. "I thought maybe you were tired of us." He shook his head. "I was tired, but not of you. I was trying to fix something I didn't know how to explain." I frowned. "Fix what?" He hesitated. "My father's house. You remember how he left it to me before he passed? It's been falling apart for years. I started going there after work, cleaning it, fixing things, trying to make it livable again." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because I wanted it to be your gift." "My gift?" He nodded. "You always talked about wanting a place where we could start over. Somewhere quiet, away from the noise. I thought if I could rebuild that house, maybe I could rebuild us too." The air caught in my chest. "You did all that alone?" He gave a small, tired smile. "I didn't want you to see it until it was ready. But then I realized something. A house doesn't fix what's broken between people. Talking does. And I hadn't done that in a long time." I felt tears forming again. "You could have just told me, Daniel." "I know," he said, "but I was afraid you wouldn't believe it was enough. I thought you needed more than what I could give." His voice cracked on the last word. For a long moment, there was only silence. The kind of silence that holds everything you never said. I walked closer. I never wanted more. I just wanted you. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. The same brown eyes that once felt like home. "You still do?" He asked. My voice trembled. I never stopped. The words hung there between us, fragile and real. He took a deep breath, his shoulders dropping. "I wanted tonight to remind you why we started, why we're still here. I didn't plan the fear or the confusion. I just wanted to give you something honest." He pulled something else from his jacket pocket, a small silver key. "This is for you," he said. "To the house. I finished it yesterday. It's not perfect, but it's ours." I took the key in my hand. It was cold, heavy, real. "Daniel," I whispered. "Daniel," I whispered. "Why did you write that last line? The one about not making it in time?" He looked away. "Because I didn't know if I'd have the courage to face you tonight. If you read that line, it meant I'd failed to come back." "You didn't fail," I said softly. "You came back." He smiled through tired eyes. "Barely." Then for the first time in months, he reached for my hand. His touch was warm, grounding. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. Inside, the air shifted. The heaviness began to fade. He said quietly, "Emma, can I tell you something I never said before?" I nodded, unable to speak. "When we first met," he said, "I wasn't looking for love. I was looking for peace, and you gave me both. Even when we forgot how to talk, I still woke up every day grateful you existed." My heart ached. "Why didn't you just say that before?" He smiled faintly. "Because I thought you already knew." The candle flickered, the last flame bending low. I could hear the lake outside. Calm again. He stepped closer. "So what now?" he asked. I looked at him, at the man who still carried every version of the life we had. "Now," I said, "you show me that house." He exhaled, almost a laugh. "Tonight. Tonight," I said. As we walked out into the rain, the candle behind us finally went out. But for the first time in years, it didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the start. The road curved through the trees, the headlights cutting through the mist. I sat quietly beside Daniel, clutching the silver key he'd given me. The sound of rain against the windshield filled the silence between us. He drove slowly, his hand steady on the wheel. Every few minutes, he glanced at me as if making sure I was still there. When we finally stopped, I looked out the window and my breath caught. The house stood at the edge of the hill overlooking the lake. The same old frame, but new paint, soft lights glowing from the windows. It looked alive again, like it had been waiting for this night. Daniel got out first, walked around, and opened my door. "Welcome home," he said softly. I stepped out, the air cool and sweet with rain. The sound of the lake was distant but steady, like a heartbeat. Inside, the house smelled of pine and fresh paint. Every wall had been touched. Photos of us hung near the doorway, small plants by the window, an old wooden chair I once said I loved. "You remembered everything," I whispered. "I tried," he said. "Every corner here has a memory." I turned in slow circles, taking it all in. The fireplace, the kitchen, the shelves filled with books. It felt like walking into our past. Only this time, it was new again. But under the warmth of it all, something still felt unspoken. "Daniel," I said, turning to him, "there's something missing. This is beautiful, but you're still holding something back." He didn't answer right away. His eyes shifted, and his shoulders dropped a little. "You're right." He walked over to the window, looking out at the lake. "You remember last year, the trip we planned but never took?" "Yes, you said work got in the way." He nodded. "That was part of it, but not all." I felt a slow unease rising. "What do you mean?" He turned toward me, his voice quiet. "I found out something then, something that made me pull away." My chest tightened. "What did you find out?" He took a breath. "That day you called to say you'd be late. I saw you downtown. You were at that cafe near your office. You were sitting with someone, a man." I froze. "Daniel!" "I know," he said quickly, holding up a hand. "You didn't do anything wrong." I watched from across the street. "You were laughing. You looked happy. And for the first time, I realized I hadn't made you laugh like that in a long time." I felt the weight of his words sink in. "It wasn't what you think," I said quietly. "That was Mark from the project team. We were talking about work. That's all." "I know that now," he said. "I knew it then too, but something broke inside me anyway." It wasn't jealousy. It was guilt. Because I realized how long it had been since I made you smile that way. He looked down at his hands. "I thought maybe you'd be better off without me. So I started pulling back. One excuse at a time, one quiet evening after another." I stepped closer. "You thought pushing me away would make things better?" He nodded slightly. "I didn't know how else to fix it. I thought if I gave you distance, maybe you'd find what made you happy again." Tears burned behind my eyes. "You didn't have to fix me, Daniel. You just had to be there." He smiled sadly. He smiled sadly. "I see that now." For a long moment, we stood in silence. The truth heavy, but strangely peaceful. It wasn't betrayal or anger that had driven us apart. It was love. Confused, clumsy, trying too hard to protect what was already fragile. I reached out and touched his hand. "You spent all this time building a house when all I wanted was for you to come home." He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through mine. "I built it for both of us, but maybe I built it too late." His words hung in the air, soft but sharp. Then he stepped closer, his voice breaking slightly. "There's something else I need to tell you. Something I couldn't write in the journal. My heart pounded." "What is it?" He hesitated, eyes glistening. "I've been seeing someone. Not like that. A doctor." My stomach dropped. "A doctor? Why?" He swallowed hard. "I didn't want to scare you before. It's nothing serious yet, but I've been having trouble breathing, getting dizzy. They're still running tests." I felt my breath catch. "Daniel," he shook his head gently. "I'm okay right now. I just didn't want to hide it anymore. That's why I wrote everything down. In case don't," I said firmly. "Don't finish that." He looked at me for a long time, his eyes soft but tired. "I needed you to know the truth, all of it. Because whatever happens next, I didn't want silence between us anymore." I wiped a tear before it could fall. "You could have told me from the start." "I would have been there every step." "I know," he said, "but I thought I was protecting you." We stood there, both quiet, the sound of rain returning outside. Then I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I fell in love with. Still trying to hold everything together, even when it was breaking inside him. I stepped closer, placed my hand on his chest. "You don't have to protect me anymore. We face this together now. No more secrets." He nodded slowly. "Together." The air shifted, warm and heavy with something unspoken. He reached into his pocket, pulled out another small envelope, and handed it to me. A promise. And as the thunder rolled far in the distance, he turned off the lights and pulled me close. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. But deep down, a quiet fear whispered that the morning might change everything again. The rain had stopped by morning. Sunlight fell across the living room, catching the edges of the gift box still sitting on the table. Inside it lay the small key Daniel had left for me the night before, along with a letter written in his familiar handwriting. Stood by the window, the letter unopened in my hands. For a moment, I just breathed, trying to steady the mix of relief and ache that lived inside me now. Everything had changed since last night. The truth had broken something in me. But it had also freed us both. I finally opened the envelope. Anna, I know I hurt you by keeping the truth. I didn't tell you about Sarah because I didn't know how. She reached out to me before she passed, and she asked me to give you her diary when the time felt right. That's what the key is for. The blue chest in the attic. It's hers. You'll understand once you read it. My heart caught Sarah, my sister, the one I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. The silence between us had been a wound I learned to live around. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears already gathering as I realized Daniel had carried her secret all this time. I went to the attic. The chest was right where he said it would be. I knelt beside it, turned the key, and opened the lid. Inside were photos, letters, and one small notebook tied with a faded ribbon. My sister's handwriting filled every page. Stories of us as children, her regrets, her apologies, and her love. At the end of the last page, she had written, "Tell Anna I never stop believing in her, and tell her that Daniel is the kind of man who keeps promises." I closed the notebook and sat there for a long time. The attic was quiet, except for the sound of my breathing. Suddenly, everything made sense. The distance Daniel had kept. The quiet moments when he looked like he was carrying something heavy. The way he never spoke about Sarah, no matter how much I asked. It wasn't betrayal. It was love. Complicated. Painful. But love, nonetheless. I found Daniel outside later, sitting by the old oak in our backyard. He looked up when he saw me, uncertain whether I was angry or calm. I sat down beside him. "You could have told me," I said softly. "I should have," he admitted, "but I was afraid it would hurt you more." I promised her I'd wait until you were ready. "And you thought my birthday was the right time?" He gave a small, sad smile. "It was the day she and I talked for the last time. She said birthdays remind us we're still here, still able to start over." That broke something open in me. I reached for his hand. I read her letter. She forgave me. I think she forgave us both. He exhaled deeply, his eyes wet. "Then maybe it's time we forgive ourselves." We sat in silence for a while. The air felt lighter than it had in years. There was no dramatic moment, no music playing, just the quiet truth of two people finding peace after too long in the dark. Later that night, I placed Sarah's diary on the shelf beside our wedding photo. Daniel watched me from across the room. "I'm sorry I doubted you." I said. He walked over, touched my cheek gently, and said, "I'm sorry I made it easy for you to doubt." We stood there close, but not holding on too tightly. Maybe that was what love looked like now. Not grand gestures or perfect answers, but two people choosing to stay, even after knowing all the flaws, all the truths. Before bed, I opened the small music box Daniel had given me with the gift. Inside was another folded note. It read, "For every silence that hurt us, may this song remind you we were never truly apart." When I turned the key, a soft tune filled the room. The same melody that played the night he first proposed to me years ago, under the city lights. I smiled through tears, realizing he had remembered every detail, even when I thought he had forgotten. I placed the box by the window and watched the rain start again. This time it sounded different, gentler, like it was washing away what we no longer needed to carry. I whispered, "Thank you, Sarah." "Thank you, Sarah." And then, "Thank you, Daniel." Downstairs, the clock struck midnight. Another birthday had passed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down by the past. I felt ready to start again, ready to love without the walls we had built. As I turned off the light, my eyes caught the last line of Sarah's diary, written in her uneven, fading ink. "Love isn't about time. It's about timing. And when it finally finds you again, let it in." I smiled, closed the diary, and whispered to myself, "I'm letting it in." The music box kept playing softly as I drifted to sleep. The past no longer echoed in our house, only the quiet rhythm of forgiveness and the song of love finding its way home.